What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, we have another restoration here. Alright, but this isn't just any restoration. This is a freaking $1,900 Rolex eBay win. I mean, closing minute, sniped it, $1,900. Physically can't go wrong. $1,900 and it's associated with the name Rolex. I don't think we could lose here. The bracelet, the mid case, and even the dial on this watch pretty much covers the cost, and we're not even getting into the movement at that point. The movement is realistically worth more. But with that being said, we paid $1,900 for a reason. You pay for what you get. This thing has some issues. It's not running. It's not working. However, I'm winding it, and it's winding pretty smooth. The seconds hand wants to run, but I feel absolutely no resistance. So I'm thinking something is wrong with the mainspring or something else is going on inside. But anytime that I move this crown a little bit, it almost looks like the seconds hand wants to start running. Otherwise, I'm checking all the other functions here. Everything seems to be going pretty smooth. And this watch actually has a very nice pumpkin patina, both on the hands as well as the lume plots. So realistically, if we can get this thing running, I think we have a home run on our hands. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and remove this bracelet. And this is one of the reasons why I like vintage watches. Now, Rolex used to do the drilled lugs or the holes cases. Very user-friendly, very easy to take this bracelet off of the head. And honestly, once again, it's just an easier way to do things. Now, we're taking a closer look at this watch. Overall, the condition is actually not that bad. I know it looks pretty bad. Tons of scratches, tons of chips on the crystal. You know, the lugs, they're good. They're actually pretty even all the way around. This mid case, it's looking pretty good. But once again, this thing has been well worn. So we're going to have tiny dings, dents, scratches, basically everyday wear marks. You know, these are things that we can't really avoid. And once again, there's our reference. It's a reference 1500 watch. However, one of the lug holes, we have a nice dent around it. So we're definitely going to make sure when we polish this thing not to go crazy. But looking at this crystal, so this is actually the original crystal. It's pretty beat up. I would love to save this. If we could restore even just a little bit of clarity to it, I think it'll be a home run. But tons of scratches, tons of marring, tons of chips. I mean, it happens. It's an acrylic crystal. Now, here's that dent I was just talking about. It's actually pretty bad. It would require laser fill, but I don't think we're going that crazy with this watch. You know, we got tons and tons of just buildup. Look at all this dead skin, dirt. Everything that gets trapped in between the lugs. Even the lug holes are actually pretty much filled up with dirt, dust, and debris. It happens. Once again, you wear a watch, it's going to get dirty, guys. Don't be scared of it. You could always clean this stuff right up. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So once again, we got more dead skin, dirt, dust. I mean, look at this bracelet. Look at the inner blades of this clasp. That's dead skin, people. That's not dirt. That is 100% dead skin that has just pretty much molded itself in between all these letters. So first thing we do is always, we're going to remove the case back. Now, first thing I look at that O-ring, look at the gaskets. They're shot. They're done. They're garbage. They're dried out. But we're going to take a look at this movement. Now, I'm going to give it a little shake here, and the balance is running freely. That's a very good sign right off the bat. But the watch is not running. So we have something messing with the train of wheels. You know, that's pretty much impeding this watch from actually running. Now, next thing I want to check, how does it wind? It felt very smooth before, but I felt like the oscillating weight was just flipping around. And sure enough, there you go. As I spin the crown, the oscillating weight should stay in place. So we're definitely having an issue there. Maybe it's some dirty reversing wheels, or it could just be the C-clip that holds the rotor to the bridge. Now we're going ahead and we're dissecting this movement. First thing we do, release the automatic module. Now we have an open view of this movement. We're going to give it a little shake once again. Now we can see exactly what's going on. Obviously, none of the wheels are turning. The third wheel, I could see through the cutout in the bridge. It's stuttering. It's moving. It wants to run, but it won't. The pallet fork, I could see it moving back and forth. However, it's only interacting with the same two teeth on the escape wheel. So clearly, we have something along the lines of no power going through the train of wheels, or there's something in there that's just impeding it from running. Now we can go ahead and loosen up this detent, and then we can finally remove the crown from the movement. Tighten in our movement tabs, and then we can release the movement from the case. Now with our movement out, we can take a closer look at this dial. And it's actually in phenomenal condition. We do have a little bit of scratching, some oxidization, But overall, the sunburst effect is perfect. All of our lume is perfect. Everything is the same hue. So this thing is definitely not refinished. And I mean, overall, it's just a great looking dial. But we're going to protect that. We're going to go ahead and remove these hands. Now, once we have the hands removed, I like to protect them. We'll polish these up a little bit later on as they have some scratches. Then we can go ahead and start removing the dial. So the dial is secured to the actual movement via these two flathead screws on both sides of the movement. Now, a dial has two dial feet. Screws clamp down on it, but we got this dial removed. Now we can go ahead and release this date disc. Pull back on the jumper. I like to use a piece of Rodico and some boxwood tweezers. Then we can get that out of there. Start removing all the screws on this upper carrier plate, and then we can remove that. Now that that's removed, I have a better look at this movement, and honestly, it's in good condition. I don't see any coating flaking off, but what I do notice is a lack of grease where it should be. Overall, the movement seems to be in pretty good condition. I don't see anything broken right off the bat. So we're going to keep on going and dismantle this a little bit more. I'm going to move our date jumper here. We got to be careful because this does hold the date wheel mounted arm along with the jewel. Then we can go ahead and remove the keyless works. This is the cover mechanism. Now we can go ahead, start removing all the springs. Now these things are what give tension to everything along the lines of the keyless works. I'm going to press this one back and remove our date wheel mounted. Just look how much built up grease and oil is on there. Sometimes these things, they pretty much just wear out. The greases only have such a long shelf life. But now we're working bottom side. We're going to release the power from this mainspring. Would you look at that? There's no power in this mainspring at all. I did suspect that we had an issue with it. So now I know exactly where to look. I'm going to go ahead and start removing our balance. Want to make sure that this is out of the way so we don't cause any damage. Our hairspring and the balance is the most important and pretty much the most expensive part of a movement. But while I'm here, I want to check the pallet fork. I want to see if I can get it into engagement with the escape wheel. Just moving it back and forth with the tips of my tweezers, and it's not moving. Now watch this. When I wind this watch, the escape wheel is actually moving. That's not a good thing. The pallet fork should be stopping the escape wheel. That's what actually holds the power along the train of wheels, and it's not working. Our pallet fork seems to be in okay condition. It's just very dirty. Checking free spin, everything is engaging correctly. Everything is moving on its own at free will. So that's a good sign. So I'm really starting to think we just have a problem with our mainspring. Maybe something, or maybe the pallet fork was just set incorrectly. I'm going to go ahead and remove our ratchet wheel. Then we also have this winding wheel, and we want to make sure that we remove everything here. Now it's a two-piece part as well as the bottom washer. Remove our seconds wheel, and then we can remove the bridge. Now we can go ahead and start removing everything else under here. Remove our winding bridge, and then we finally have access to the barrel. Now, first off, look at this end shake. That is way too much end shake. This mainspring has to be broken. There's no way that it's not. Pow! I actually just got hit in the face with this. Alright, usually they don't have that much pressure. They don't shoot up that high. But exactly as I suspected, we have a broken mainspring. This is actually an aftermarket mainspring. Pure junk. I'm going to go ahead and start disassembling our automatic works here. Once again, we have dried up grease, dried up lubrication, and it's causing all the bridges and wheels pretty much to stick together. It's not a good thing. Move our little winding gear there, and then this C-clip. Now, the C-clip is also broken, so we're going to have to replace that. Now we can go ahead. We finally have this movement fully broken down. We have all of our parts out in the open, and they're ready to be cleaned. Yes, of course, I do clean every single movement. Screw by screw, jewel by jewel, everything gets cleaned. Now, people always ask me, Peter, how do you know where screws go? Now, when I first started in this, someone told me that I should group everything, basically how it comes off the watch. Now, over time, you'll learn exactly what size screw goes where, to what bridge, and where it should be. So once you get good at it, you can pretty much just throw them in any basket. Screws in one, bridges in another, and you'll know exactly where it goes. First rinse in some 777. Now we'll set up our second rinse and then lift up the basket and drop it into the second jar. Now for anyone who's asking what machine I use, this is a pre-owned L&R Mastermatic. I don't think that they're made anymore. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure that they're not made anymore. But, I bought it pre-owned, rewired it. Thing works perfect. We're going through our second rinse here, 101. And then we can go ahead, turn that off, turn our heater on. We're going to release that and drop that into the heater. Now this is where all of our parts dry. Once again, I like to put a cover over this so everything dries perfectly. While we're waiting for everything to dry, I like to clean my workstation. Use some rubbing alcohol. Make sure that this thing is contaminant free. We're getting nice clean watch parts out of the machine, so we want to make sure that our working surface is also clean. Everything seems to be dried up by now, so we're good to go. Now, everything you're seeing in the background, those are parts that I've cleaned off camera or Epilum treated, but now we're removing all the parts from the basket and we can go ahead and take these out and just take a look at this. Beautiful, no more gummed up grease. The barrel was pretty bad, so I had to replace that. But we got clean watch parts. Let's start putting this thing back together. Brand new OEM mainspring. These things are hard to find. I'm going to put a cover on and then we can go ahead and close this thing up. Only press down on this jig until you hear the click. Then we know everything is seated and this barrel is perfect. It's ready to go back inside of the movement. Now while we're doing that, we could also reinstall all of our train of wheels. We got the escape wheel, the third wheel, the seconds wheel, as well as the great wheel. Once those are back in, we could toss back on our bridge as well as the screws. Now we're checking our free spin. Everything is moving perfectly. Once again, everything's moving at free will. That's a good sign. We're ready for the winding bridge. Throw on our winding bridge and then we have our crown wheel, winding wheel, whatever you want to call it. I like to put some 90-10 on this inner wall here. Once again, this is a two-piece part. And we could reinstall our click as well as our ratchet wheel. And I like to make sure that this thing's seated. I like to make sure it's engaging and everything is working. So now we can put down this screw. This is one of the easiest screws to know what it is. All right. Gonna screw that down, tighten up this mainspring, give it a little bit of a wind, a little bit of a charge. No pallet fork. Everything will spin. Now we have our pallet fork in and look at that. Now the pallet fork is engaging with the escape wheel. It's holding the power and it's not allowing the mainspring to just release it. This is what we want to see. We want to see it basically jump back and forth. Then we know it's actually engaging with the escape wheel and we have adequate power throughout the train of wheels. And as you guys can see, pallet fork is moving back and forth. Our escape wheel is moving. So now we throw the balance back on and look at that. We have life. This movement is finally running once again. Just a great sight. I mean, all the wheels are engaging. So let's take a look at everything that's moving around. Once again, we have our seconds wheel. This is finally moving. So that's a good thing. That's a good sign. Everything's moving. Everything's working. You know, our third wheel, look at the cutout in the bridge. That's finally moving again. No stuttering, nothing like that. So now I let it run with just Epilum, but then I oiled up the pallet stones. This thing's actually running pretty good. I don't see any need for regulation at this second. We'll definitely regulate the beat error as well as the rate a little bit later on in the video, but it's running good. So now I feel comfortable. Let's jump topside and start putting this thing back together. We're putting everything in so that we can get the keyless works installed, reinstalling all of our springs, making sure that we add proper amounts of grease, and look at that. Now all the grease will be cleaned up. Anything you see on top of the sliding gear there, we're going to take care of that. Put in our setting wheel, all the other wheels within the motion works. Go ahead, brand new cannon pinion. The other one was pretty much messed up. This is our keyless works cover. Got all that tightened down, did some camera magic, and now we're reinstalling this upper carrier plate. Once again, we got 3 screws that go up here. You guys will remember that if you group everything together or just know where it goes. Pulling back on that date jumper, now we're reinstalling our date disc. Once again, use something that's not going to scratch a date disc, guys. All right. But once we have that installed, you'll hear a nice little click. You'll see it connected within the jumper, and then we can go ahead and test, make sure that it's flipping over. We go from day 5 to day 6. All right, beautiful. Now we know we can put the dial and hands back on. So I cleaned them up. I cleaned them up just a little bit. I don't want to mess with that loom. The loom is perfect. And now we have the dial back on. Cleaned it up as much as I could. However, there's still some scratches. There's still some oxidization that we can't do anything about. There's also some hand drag around the center pinion. We have all that installed, and this is how the watch is now running. This is it, dial side up and dial side down after adjusting our beat error. And I mean, overall, I'm very happy with this watch. I mean, this is a very old watch, and to get these types of numbers, I'm very happy with how it's running. So now I feel comfortable with the movement. I could turn my attention over to this case, bracelet, bezel, crystal, and it needs some work, guys. it needs some work. Once again, all these dings and dents, it's just, it happens. When you wear a watch, this is what happens. However, there's a ton of rust that I did not see. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to make sure that we save the structural integrity and the geometry of this case. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to over polish it. So you guys are going to see some scratches in the end, and that's me physically leaving them in there. Now take a look at this case back. Beautiful. It's not overlapped. It hasn't been over polished. I mean, we have a good starting point. We have a very good starting point, and I really think that this watch is going to come out phenomenal. So let's check out the bracelet, see how that's looking. And the bracelet, in all honesty, it isn't that bad. I don't see any flat spots. I don't see any dents within the links themselves. So that's actually a very good thing. I think just, once again, like I said earlier in the video, less is more. If this thing comes out looking like a brand new watch, it won't work, right? It's too vintage. It needs to have some signs of wear. It can't look brand new, all right? And realistically, the only way to get it to look brand new is to over polish the hell out of it, and I'm not a fan of doing that. Now, I was talking about rust before. This is very common. On older watches, water will sit and get trapped underneath the bezel, and it'll basically rust. Now, sometimes it can be bad rust, and it can actually eat away and pit the case, but this isn't too bad. So first thing we do is we get on the wheel here. Now, this is to rebrush and pretty much get out any heavy scratches, any small marring marks, or anything like that before I do my actual hand finish. Now, we're not looking for a final finish with this wheel. This is, once again, this is the wheel to do the dirty work with. Now, we're grinding everything down, making sure that we have flat, smooth surfaces, and we're getting out anything that is too big to get out by hand. Now, I like to refinish all these bracelets by hand. Don't ask me why. I think it's a very clean and perfect finish when it comes out. It's very soft, it's very subtle, exactly like how Rolex brushes their watches. Now, I'm going to do the same thing for the buckle. Nice and smooth, fluent motions, and then we have beautiful straight lines. Our parts are not, overbrushed. We don't start seeing any deformation. So it's a good thing. Now we're going to go ahead and move over to the case. Once again, we have 5 different steps: cutting again, polishing, making sure that we're saving and watching the lugs. Now finally, everything is starting to come together. We can go ahead and relap our case back. Once again, smooth, fluent motions, and then we have beautiful, crisp, straight lapping lines on the case back. And now we're very close for this watch being done. We're going to dust everything off, reinstall the movement back into the case. Now we're going to flip this all over and check this out. The watch is now winding and the oscillating weight is staying in place. Now we're going to reinstall the case back, fresh O-rings, fresh grease, and I mean, this thing is done. Take a look at this watch, guys. I said I was going to hold on to the crystal. I wanted to try and save it, and I did just that. Look at the amount of clarity that has been restored to this. Obviously, we can't remove all those deep chips, deep scratches, but I mean, it looks 10,000 times better. That lug ding, it cleaned up very nicely without really removing too much excess material. Sides of the case, now once again, like I said, less equals more. I wasn't going for a perfect refinish here, meaning I'm not cutting this thing up. I just wanted to clean it up enough for this thing to be wearable, but still, to the naked eye, people would say, okay, that's a vintage watch. Of course it's going to have regular marks. But overall, I mean, how could you not enjoy the look of this watch? Now, I mean, come on, just take a look at this. What a transformation. This watch is just, I mean, now it's in phenomenal condition. And once again, a $1,900 eBay watch came out this good. It's now running perfectly. Everything is functioning as it should. And more importantly, we kept all of the original parts other than broken internal parts, which were replaced with brand new factory parts. This crystal, I'm very happy with how it came out. You could see right through it. Now, you guys will notice on the edges or the rim of the crystal, there is some rust. That's just staining. There's not really much I could do. I tried to clean it up as best as I could, but the main objective was to make it clearer, more visible, more legible. And that's exactly what I did. This thing looks phenomenal every way you look at it. This is a perfect everyday wear watch. And realistically, there's not much more I can ask for. From both the price point of this watch to the outcome of this restoration, I mean, there's really no complaints. There really is no complaints. But as always, guys, the videos have to end at some point. This is going to be the end of this video. And as always, if you're looking to buy, sell, trade, do any of those wonderful things, head right over to the website, horologyexchange.com. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. And more importantly, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This channel is growing, which is fantastic. We're getting our views up and we're getting our subscriber count up. So I can't thank you guys enough. Another restoration in the books, and we have a ton more coming out shortly. You guys have been sending in watches left and right, so it's not only giving me a ton of content, but it's also allowing me to help each and every one of you that has sent in your watch. So keep an eye out for those videos. We'll get back to some vlog videos next week, but that's all for this one, folks. Don't forget, once again, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. All the deals, all the steals get posted there first. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.